Hi, I'm Dr. Margaret Rutherford, and I'm glad to be back on Mental Health on the Mighty. We're going to be talking about grief and depression during the holidays today. I'm so excited to be invited to be back. I was on Mental Health on the Mighty about 2 months ago, and then they texted and or emailed and said, gosh, we'd like to have you as a regular contributor. So I'm so excited. I will be looking for your comments and questions. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. But again, if I don't get to them today, I'll write you a comment on the Facebook page so we can be in touch. I don't know if I told you who I am. I'm Dr. Margaret Rutherford. Maybe I said that. Hi, Emily. I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been practicing psychology or doing therapy in Fayetteville, Arkansas for over 20 years. So I have tried to help at least a lot of people get through the holidays while they're grieving something very acutely or chronically, or they're depressed. So we're going to talk about both because I think it's important to. In fact, it's a very difficult issue for everybody. Hi, Portia. So let's talk a little bit about grief. For one thing, grief has stages. Probably a lot of you know that. It's about denial, sadness, bargaining, anger, and then acceptance. And you don't just go through those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe you're denial, and then you're sad, and then you're angry, and then you're back in denial, and then you're sad again, and then you're making promises. So anyway, grief doesn't go like I said before, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You go between stages. In fact, the only time I've ever been asked about, well, how do I know if I'm grieving in a healthy way? My answer has always been, if you don't get stuck. If you get stuck in anger, if you get stuck in denial, if you get stuck in sadness, then you're going to have a problem. So anyway, I love the Mighty too. Heidi Lynn. So when I'm counseling people with grief, we always talk about the stage they're in, where they have been, the stages they've been in, and of course that's important during the holidays too, to know what stage of grief you're in. But one of the things that I want to stress about grief to you, frequently someone will come in and say, but the holidays or some other trigger are causing me to feel even worse than I did the day that I found out my mother passed away, or I got divorced, or I got fired from my job, whatever they're grieving. I say, I think I'm going backwards. What my observations about grief have been is that grief comes in waves. And just because you experience a stronger wave, maybe even than ever before, doesn't mean you're relapsing or you're not making progress. I'll give you a metaphor. If you didn't know anything about the ocean, and I was able to metaphorically pluck you up and put you at the edge of the ocean, it's high tide and it's black midnight, and you get hit by a wave, all of a sudden, you're going to not know what was going on. You're going to dig your toes in just innately, instinctively, but you may think you're going to get pulled out in the water. You don't even know what an undertow is. So you're just fighting to survive, and then you get hit by another wave. That's what grief is like. Now, what you don't know is that the tide is receding, that you don't understand. Over time, the tides will recede. The waves of grief will get less and less if, again, it's not turning into what psychologists call a complicated grief. But if you know anything about the ocean, you know that sometimes you're standing on the beach and you get hit by this gargantuan wave that truly is larger than any of the ones that you've experienced in the last few minutes. That's what grief is like. It's characteristic of grief to hit a larger, more powerful wave. And that still does not mean you're not healing. It means that that's what grief's all about. Let's see, we're hearing from Savvy. My grandfather passed 2 days ago. Oh, and the weather is going to be bad on the way to the funeral. Should I stay home and grieve, not going to the funeral? No, I definitely think you need to go. Those kinds of rituals are important, and you need the family support. This death at the holidays, I will share with y'all that actually back in 2007, my mother died on December the 17th, and my father died on Christmas Eve. My mother's death was very unexpected, my father's not so. So I've had a lot of personal experience with managing the holidays and being grieved. And I think, is it savvy? Yeah. What you need to do is really try to ascertain or decide what is the most meaningful thing to you. But I think if you avoided it altogether, you wouldn't be happy about that. But do take care of yourself. And if there's certain things that you can't do, that's okay. All right? So one of the things about the holidays and why grief and depression are so hard during the holidays is that holidays are markers. They're markers of time. If I asked you, for example, what did you do with your mom February the 17th last year? This is maybe a mom that's passed away, and you say, I don't know what I did February the 17th. And then my answer would be, what that brings to mind is, but I bet if I said, what did you do last Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa with your mom, you would know. You would have saved that in your memory. So holidays are markers. They make us remember. We count time, just like anniversaries, birthdays. We think of time since last Christmas, since last Hanukkah. So what the holidays does then is highlight the amount of time, or the very short amount of time, as I think it's Savvy Ann said. It puts that in perspective. Gosh, it's been 10 months since I lost Mom, or it's been 5 months, or it's it's been 2 years and this is my second Christmas. So what you have to do is realize that that's normal. That would be normal for happy things. If you'd gotten a new job this year that you really like, you would say, gosh, I didn't even know last Christmas I was going to get a new job. I'm so glad. So it's going to happen for painful things as well. But I'm a very solution-oriented therapist. I like to talk to people all the time about what they can do, what they have control over in the situation. Now, obviously, there's no simple solution to grief or depression. That would be sort of silly for me to say. But let's talk a little about what I've come up with. I've come up with 9 tips or things to think about when you're grieving, and then I've come up with some others for depression. And we'll get to talking about depression as well, in a little more detail. So I'm going to use my notes. First of all, and this is really true of depression or grief, but especially I think with grief, you need to surround yourself with people who are very capable of hearing you talk about your loss. I had a friend we have a friend who died this year very suddenly, and his wife and son came to our home for Thanksgiving, as they had done in the past. And so she said to me, I don't know if you want me here, I'm so sad. And I said, gosh, that's okay, we understand. We want to share in your grief. The thing about grief is that it scares a lot of people. They're afraid of it. They're afraid of their own lives getting out of control. And so they're not going to be there for you when you try to talk about your grief. Oh, your boyfriend blindsided you and broke up with you. Oh my goodness, you holidays and want to die. Well, Leslie Ann, you need to ask somebody for help if that's true, that you really want to die. I hope no boyfriend is worth that. Obviously, it was a huge blow to you, and there's a lot to wrap around, but please go to your nearest crisis center or call a crisis hotline. In fact, I believe the producer of this show is going to put the crisis hotline at the bottom of the comments or the top of the comments. So please take care of yourself. Again, find people who love you and will support you. Let's go back to talking about grief a little bit. So some people will withdraw from you when they think that you're getting out of control, no, I'm sorry, I misspoke. They don't want to believe that their lives could get out of control, so they may back off or withdraw from you. So again, surround yourself with people who will support you. That's true of you too, Leslie Ann. Then there's a thing called survivor guilt, and I think that it might be more prominent during the holidays. Let's say your cousin committed suicide, or let's say you got divorced this year and you're grieving those things. Sometimes if you are really working through it and you sometimes feel like you're getting better, you may have survivor guilt because your life is going on. And theirs is not. Or perhaps if you're married and know other people that are divorced, I got to get a little something to drink. That your marriage is fine and theirs is not. So sometimes you can have a little bit of survivor guilt, and that's important to work through. This is true of grief or depression. Only do those things that have true meaning for you. If the custom in your hometown is to do certain things that are sort of, for you, very superficial, then don't do those this year. I mean, maybe they're fun to do and join in, but only do what really will help you deal with your depression or your grief. I truly recommend getting off social media. When you're grieving, unless it's about asking for support for yourself, then what you see on social media makes you feel so isolated, like you're the only one that's suffering. And it's very important for you to recognize that you're not. Maybe join support groups on Facebook or just support groups in your area for those grieving. And make sure that you somewhat buffer yourself from all the perfection that is Facebook. If you want to say no during the holidays, this is the 5th tip. If you want to say no during the holidays, you really don't feel like going, then say no. That's perfectly all right. Don't feel like, oh, well, it'll call attention to me that I'm grieving. That's okay, you are grieving. But you got to be careful not to say no too much, because then that will lead to isolation, and you don't want that, okay? Let me check in with Reader. There was a time when I thought about suicide. I used to cry every single day, and later I started practicing positive thoughts, and that worked. Good. That's great. Rekha Jenny, I have no support groups here. What you can do is then look for those online, or go to maybe a town that's close to you, and they may have support groups. Lots of churches run grief support groups. So also, number 6 is, this is the first holiday. Recognize that that's going to be very difficult. You're going to be remembering, what did we do last Christmas? What did we do last Hanukkah? You're going to be walking through those steps and grieving, and that's going to take a lot of effort. Again, as I said to the person who wrote in about her grandfather's death, I believe it's important not to avoid it. Now, there are lots of people who do something quite different. After my parents died, we'd never done a dirty Santa, and we did a dirty Santa that year. Interestingly, we've never done it again. But we needed to do something different. So just take care of yourself in that way, but don't avoid the pain, because it'll be waiting for you when you get back. Now, if this is your 2nd or 3rd holiday season, or 16th, or whatever, that you feel like you're still actively grieving, please recognize that, sadly, but not so sadly, other people's lives have gone on, and they want to be supportive of you, but they may have truly forgotten. So what I recommend is thinking about someone who knows you pretty well, or has shown interest in you, and say, I don't know if you remember or not, but the grandmother I just adored died this year. And could we have lunch, and could I just talk to you about it? Or could we go for a walk? I mean, reach out to people, because they may not remember. They may remember you got divorced. They may remember that your house got burned down. But sometimes people forget about loss. So ask for what you need. Obviously, if, like the young woman or someone said that she was getting suicidal because of the breakup of a boyfriend, I would try to get in to see a therapist just as soon as possible. You can get stuck in that sense of, I can't survive this, and what therapists can really do and help you do is see how you've survived other things, and that you can survive this as well. Also, I've already mentioned this, but you can look for what's called, in my town, a Blue Christmas service with a local church. Make sure that there is a time and a place for people who have had tremendous loss to grieve, and to honor the fact that this Christmas, or again, Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, whatever you're celebrating, may or may not, or just may not be the best one for you, or a very positive one. Or you can look for a grief support group. Again, when you're grieving and everyone's saying Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, buying presents, You know, you just feel more isolated. You feel out of step with other people. But that's normal. And just look for people who can tolerate and understand and be compassionate towards your grief. Let me check in with another. Is it normal to feel the necessity of crying? I have a day where I cry my heart out and then eat chocolate ice cream. Is it normal? Yes. Now, obviously, like I said a minute ago, if you go for a month and every day you cry, then perhaps you're stuck in sadness, and you're not looking at other feelings. One question I like to ask people is, if you weren't feeling sad, what else would you be feeling? What's underneath the sadness? So you don't want to necessarily eat too much chocolate ice cream because that will cause another problem. But you know, yes, it's normal to cry, and in fact, and yet some people's grief doesn't look like crying. It looks very stoic, and that doesn't mean they're not grieving. There's absolutely no right way to grieve, except for the fact that, as I said before, you don't want to get stuck in any stage of grieving. Okay, so let's go on to talk about depression. I've treated a lot of people with depression. There are all sorts of depression. As you well know, there's bipolar, there's recurrent depression, there's unipolar depression or major depression, there's milder depression. So when we're trying to group it all together and talk about depression, then that becomes a little more difficult. I've also talked about what I call perfectly hidden depression, what I've seen on the Mighty and other sites. Some people call high functioning depression or hidden depression. And that is a kind of depression that actually people look great. In fact, they look like the goers and doers and movers and shakers of their community. And yet underneath that, they're depressed. And in fact, the holiday season can be a real bugaboo for them. Bugaboo, that's an Arkansas word. Because they're so hyped up that they work even harder to create a facade. And that's not helpful to them either. But let's talk in general about being depressed. You know the symptoms of depression: depressed mood, anhedonia, either a flat affect or just no emotion at all, or tearfulness, excessive tearfulness. It can also look like anger and agitation. Throw some anxiety in there. I've never met anybody, as I've said, that has had severe anxiety that's not depressed about it. So what others? Oh, and there's the mental symptoms: foggy thinking, not being able to make decisions, all of that. And then, of course, there's hopelessness, helplessness, suicidal thoughts, or just thoughts of what we call thoughts of a welcome death. Obviously, the holidays put stress on people who are depressed. They can feel very pressured, or perhaps I should say you could feel very pressured to somehow live up to everybody else's expectations. And you don't have to. So let's talk a little bit first about traveling when you're depressed, or going to family or friends that haven't seen you and perhaps don't even recognize that you are as depressed as you are. I'll get to some of these in just a second. Hold on. Can someone suffer from depression without really being sad or down, but have no energy or drive to leave the house? Yes. Yes. Depression can look like a lot of things. It doesn't always look like melancholy and not being able to walk the dog. It can be isolativeness. It can be all the things that you said. Depression wears a lot of faces, okay? So let's go back to talking about traveling. One very basic thing, what are called the neurovegetative signs of depression, which are weight gain or weight loss and sleep disturbance, can really get bad when people get out of their routine. This is especially true for bipolar disorder, but it's actually true for all kinds of depression. You need, even though you're traveling, even though you've got all this bustling, well, maybe you are engaging in bustling activity, maybe you're not, but there's a lot of activity around you, then you need to try to stay in your routine. Eat the times you've always eaten. Sleep the amount of hours you've always slept. Exercise. And really don't go off your medication during the holidays. It's not a good time to change anything. So much is going on, and you're dealing with a lot. So You need to take them, if you're on medication, to take the medication and make sure you do the things that you know help keep you stable or better. Now again, Andrew Solomon, who I just love his writing, says the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's vitality. You lose a lot of a sense of vitality when you're depressed. And so again, just like with grief, I said to find the things that have true meaning that are going to help you feel a little bit engaged. The sticky wicket of depression is always trying to get your energy focused outward again. And so if you can get engaged in something that may make you cry or may make you upset in some way, but it can still give you true meaning, I think that's important to try to look for those things. In reaching out to other people, what I said with grief was to try to reach out to people who could actually tolerate the idea of the depth of your loss. I think the same thing is true of depression. You don't want people around you who are going to try to fix your depression. Oh, come on, it's the holidays. They don't understand. Yes, it's helpful for you to try to get engaged outside of yourself, but sometimes that's just not possible. So be with people who will be okay and give you lots of compassion for whatever you're going through, and whether you're depressed severely, whether you're moderately or mildly depressed, but can understand, and seek out those people. I have a plaque back behind me that says friends are your chosen families. And so sometimes if your family doesn't understand, you'll have friends that do. I love the new concept of, or fairly new concept of, Friendsgiving and Friendsmas, and what would be with Hanukkah, Frenica, I don't know. But you can do a lot of things with friends that maybe if you have a difficult relationship with your family, which we're going to talk about in a second, your friends can be great stand-ins. Watch your alcohol use. If you're depressed, if you're on medication, now I'm not a medical doctor, okay, but medication can really, or alcohol can screw up medication. Medication exponentiates the effect of alcohol or makes it higher, and so you really want to be careful. And of course, alcohol use can be depressing. It acts as a mild depressant, so you really want to watch alcohol or abstain completely during the holidays. Now, let's talk about families a little bit, and how you talk about your family, how you talk with your family about your depression. I'm a big believer in not walking in, and let's say your family hasn't seen you in 4 or 5 months and they think you're doing fine, and you walk in and you're very depressed. I believe in giving people a heads up to say, I've had a rough few months, I've lost weight, or I've gained weight, or I've got some bags under my eyes, or if I cry, suddenly, then please don't worry about me. I'm doing okay, I'm getting treatment, I just need your support, I really want to come home for the holidays. So give people a heads up, that way they have time to think about how they want to try to help you, or they can even ask you, so what can I do that will help you? And those are important conversations to have. Let me check. I suffer from BPD and just find it so hard to find motivation, no energy at all. It's so hard. Borderline personality disorder is tough, you betcha. Mood swings are all over the place. Depression, of course, is a huge issue with a lot of people with borderline, as is anger and agitation. So people with borderline personality disorder have a rough time. And again, we're getting a little off topic, but people that I have worked with who have borderline have told me frequently how empty they feel. And if there's ever a time when your emptiness may be more highlighted or more difficult, it's when everybody else seems to be celebrating. So I hope you've got a good therapist. I hope you're in treatment and that you can figure out some of the things that borderlines can do to help themselves. Let's get back to depression. Just some practical things. You may have to leave a family gathering. I went through infertility treatment years ago, and anytime I was asked to a baby shower, I said, I've been trying for 3 years to get pregnant, and I want to come to your baby shower. You're important to me, but I may have to leave. And you can do that as far as your depression is concerned too. Take care of yourself. Keep your options open. Maybe you've got kind of a difficult family and you want to see them, But keep your options open. You can go for 2 days, or can keep the length of your visit shorter. You can say, you know, I'm going to stay with y'all for a couple of days, and then I'm going to go stay with my friend. Don't feel like you have to do either what you've always done in the past, or that you can't think more creatively. I helped a woman recently who just was hating going to her mother's. Her mother was very controlling, and I said, well, why don't you stay in a hotel? And she said, oh, I couldn't do that. And well, sure enough, she could do that, and it really helped everybody. So again, you can think creatively about that. Now, I do have an analogy that I want to give to you. I deal a lot in metaphor. I love metaphor and analogy. Some of my patients get really tired of it. But I had a patient a long time ago who had recurrent depression, and it happened every, let's say, 2 to 3 years, so not often enough for her to think about more serious treatment, but certainly it was terrible for her. And we talked about her triggers and everything, but her husband still just didn't get it. He didn't understand. He said, I don't see any difference. Nothing in our lives have changed. Just all of a sudden she's depressed. So I came up with this analogy, and I want to read it to you, and then I'll take some of these questions, okay? So this is what I said to him. I'm going to read because I want to make sure that I get it all in. Imagine you're given a house to live in. The floors are covered with carpets from around the world. When you walk around in your home, your house, living your busy life, you enjoy it. You get to know its nooks and crannies. But there's a trick to this house. Every night, the powers that be dig a hole in the floor somewhere and then cover the hole up with one of those rugs. The next night, the hole could be in a different place. It's randomly moved around. No one can tell, not even when you're living in the house, that anything is different. And it's your job to go on living normally. Now imagine how you would feel. Your steps would be cautious, your ability to enjoy and feel free diminished. With enough time, you'd feel better if you didn't fall in a hole. You could go for days without falling, maybe even weeks or months. So you go on living until the day you fall in a hole. That's how it feels for someone with recurrent depression. They have to live their life knowing that they might not see the depression or the fall that's about to happen. You learn you can get out, but you can't always know what's waiting for you. It's your house. It's what you've been given. There are beautiful things about it, but there are pitfalls and struggles that aren't always under your control. There was something about that analogy that really helped him understand. He got tears in his eyes and he said, gosh, I've never even considered that she couldn't see that it was coming, that she would just fall in it. Now, people with depression can get better at seeing their triggers if they don't get enough sleep, if they don't get enough exercise. I have a patient who always gets depressed when she was sexually abused by a relative, and she goes around the relative and during the holidays usually, and she always becomes very depressed. So there are different things that can trigger you. And you can get pretty good at saying, oh, wait a minute, I need to take care of myself better. But sometimes you can sit under all the lights and do the light therapy, and you can eat well, and you can take your meds, and you can stay engaged and connected, and you're still going to get depressed. So that's something that depressed people have to manage, or people with depression. I shouldn't say depressed people, like that's a thing. It's people who experience depression. So I hope that analogy is helpful. If you'd like to read it yourself, it's on my blog post from not this past weekend, but last weekend, and that website is drmargaretrutherford.com. So let's go back again to talking about what you can do with depression. So I offer you that analogy to simply say, if you need to try to talk to your own family member about how you experience your depression, maybe if you sent them that analogy or talked to them about that analogy, it would help them understand too. Okay, so what if your family ignores your depression? Wait a minute, hold on, let's take a question. Oh, thank you, Naris, for the suicide prevention hotline. I've been told I have anxiety and depression, but haven't been told what type. How can I find out? Well, whoever told you you had it should have told, and in my opinion, should have said, this is more moderate depression, this is more severe depression, this is a depression that goes along with bipolar disorder or cyclic disorder. Go back to that person and say, well, I've read more about depression and I want to know what kind I have. I want to know, are there certain treatments that would really be helpful for me? Because there are. If your depression is the result of trauma, there's EMDR that can be very helpful. That's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is very good for more moderate to severe depression. But your treatment is going to be based on what kind of depression you have. So it's very important to find out. I'm trying to think of a good book that Michael Yapko has, Breaking the Patterns of Depression. And that's a very good book on the kinds of depression and what you can do about it. Again, I'm all about what you can do about it. But what if your family ignores your depression or says you just need to buck up? They don't want to get it. They don't want to be compassionate. They think you're being silly or lazy or whatever, and you're supposed to go home for the holidays. Well, maybe this time you don't, because it could do so much damage to you. And at this juncture, you have to be your own advocate. So perhaps, either do what I said before and keep the visit very short, only what you can tolerate, or realize that this may need to be one of those Friendsgivings or one of those Friendsmasses, because you simply can't, you won't survive, or it will make you worsen to be around your family. Now, I'm so glad Neris posted the suicide prevention hotline. Obviously, if you are suicidal during the holidays, and if you're in therapy and you're going to be away from your therapist, you and she or he need to have a safety plan for you. Let's say you're going to Oregon and you've never been to Oregon before and you're dealing with a pretty dark depression. You need to find out what psychiatric hospitals are in the area, what to do in emergency. You need to have some kind of safety plan, maybe a friend that you can call, or like I say, your therapist. You've got to be your own advocate. When I was researching this, I actually thought, well, there are 12 of us who are going to be grieving during the holidays, sort of back to grief, and thought, okay, because they're 12 months, so there'll be 12th of us are grieving more acutely during the holidays. That's actually not true. There are more suicides during the holidays. There are more deaths during the holidays. So you may have a lot of things that are triggering you, and please either call the suicide prevention hotline, the national one. They're often community suicide hotlines, or reach out to a therapist. Let me read one more question. My mom recently passed away. I'm so sorry, and I feel like I'm burdening the ones around me. It feels like a lot of people want me to just be happy and get over it. The holidays coming up is getting me more down too. Yeah. I want to believe in the goodness of people. I don't want to believe that people aren't compassionate, although as a therapist I hear about a lot of cruelty to people. But what I believe, Felicia, is that people want you to get over it, again, because they become afraid. They become afraid that pain lasts a long time, and they don't want to think about that. So after a divorce, someone will say, after 3 months, don't you want to be dating? Or after you lose your job, well, why don't you just, buck up and go find another one? Or after your house, all these people who lost their homes in Gatlinburg, they're walking around like mummies here or during the holidays. I mean, they have tremendous loss to grieve. So find people, look for people, maybe people whose parents have passed away fairly recently, even within the last year or two, and they will understand more what you're talking about and give you support. Sometimes, again, you have to act as your own advocate, and I know that's hard when you're grieving or you're depressed. Couple of other things, just handling holiday vibes in general. Really find a way to turn it off. Find a movie that's not about snowmen or reindeer or where Jingle Bell Rock isn't playing in the background. Find something that you'll enjoy that takes your mind off the holidays. And again, I've already said, limit or get off social media, because everybody's going to be posting these perfect looking pictures of their families, or their children, whatever, and that's hard to see when you're feeling more down or despondent or just lonely. A couple of other things are to journal. I'm a huge believer in journaling. I think it helps you stop obsessing so much because you don't really want to write the same thing over and over again. So you get bored with it, frankly. So it helps you work through more things. If you journal every day for 15 minutes even, that can really help. And if you don't want anybody to find it, burn it up. It doesn't matter. It's the process of it, not necessarily the content or the actual writing. And then, avoid crowds. A lot of people get very anxious in big crowds, and that's not going to help your grief or your depression. You might even trigger it. So, if you're going to go buy presents, then try to either do it online or try to find things that will be safe for you. And again, though, like I said before, you don't necessarily want to isolate. So there's this fine balance of looking for people who can truly be supportive and understand where you're coming from, and then the people who you just you realize they're just not going to be there for me, so I need to avoid them. Let me look at another. Are there natural things to take that can help with depression and anxiety besides exercise and meditation? I've not mentioned meditation, and it's great. I already do those, like herbs. I'm sure there are. I am not all that expert in herbs. I do have some people, they take melatonin, for example, for sleep, because sleep can be such a problem with depression. Wait, there's one that's coming to mind. After I turn this video off, it'll come to mind, but it is a mood lifter, and it's just escaping me right now. I'm so sorry, Courtney. I wish I could be more helpful. But go to your local natural food market. Often there are some people there that can be helpful. Oh, I wish I could remember the name of that herb. I'm so sorry. But they'll be helpful for you. And sure, why not try it out? Meditation, as you point out, thank you so much for pointing that out, is wonderful. It calms you. It focuses you, it puts things in perspective, it gives you 10 or 15 minutes of calm. I actually have been doing it's an app called Headspace, and I've really been enjoying it. I've been doing it for the last 4 or 5 months, and it's very, very helpful to me. But there are other apps that are that guide you through meditation, so when you're trying to learn how, that can be very important. Okay, one more question. I've gone to many family doctors, and all they seem to do is just prescribe more meds. Some have helped, but none. Whoops, it's gone. Well, you're right. Doctors, they are trained, medical doctors are trained to give people medicine in order to help them. I agree with you that sometimes it's given far too soon. The only time that I particularly recommend it is if someone walks in my office and says, I've been this down, and that's very down, for 2 years, and I haven't been able to get out of it, or a year. That means that there's been an incredible amount of time that has passed that this person has not functioned well, and they've gotten out of step with friends. And sometimes what I think medication can do is the right medication for depression, not for bipolar illness. But for depression, it can give you the fresh mental energy you need to make some different choices or to change your thinking. It also helps you sleep better, and it helps you, it makes the downs not quite so down. Again, when they work. Some people can't take them. There's been some interesting discussion going on online about that medication has kind of gotten a bad rap from a lot of people. I don't recommend it right off the bat for many, many people. I do other things, especially exercise. But that's something that, find another physician. I mean, there are plenty of family physicians out there that keep up on psychotropic medications, and they can help you if indeed you need that medication. Let me see. Oh, great, Neris. Thanks again for posting the suicidal prevention number. I want to thank you for joining me. I'm going to be a regular contributor here on The Mighty, which I'm absolutely thrilled about. Again, my name is Dr. Margaret Rutherford. I'm a psychologist in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I hope this has been helpful to you. I've really loved your comments and questions, and I'll get on the Facebook page as soon as I can and try to answer other comments. If you'd like to read more of my work or hear more about me, let's hear more about Margaret. Or you can, my website again is drmargaretrutherford.com. You can privately email me. I'm the only person who sees my email at askdrmargaret@drmargaretrutherford.com. I also have just launched a podcast, and it's called Self-Work with Dr. Margaret Rutherford. That's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher. I have 5 episodes, but 2 of them are on perfectly hidden depression. So those of you who might have identified with that when I was talking about it, perhaps you'd like to listen to those podcasts at your leisure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the thumbs up and the hearts. I have enjoyed being with you. I'll be back with you in a couple of months, and we'll be talking about going into the Valentine's season and how you manage your depression at that point, especially if there are relationship issues. And we'll be talking about lots of relationship issues. Okay? Thanks so much. I'm Dr. Margaret. I'm signing off. Have a safe, careful, meaningful holiday.